There are critical core services that you need to have on your land before anything else, and modern technology makes it easier than ever. Let's talk about this so that you can get more from your small farm, homestead, or estate. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, and the folks who listen to this newsletter are landowners who are interested in outdoor activities. They tend to be high-income professionals or high-net-worth families, but they also may be in the business of providing land services or some kind of trade contractor. Now, some of what I'm going to share here is common to folks who do work on the road. They might be working on a job site, they might be working out in a remote location, and they understand these concepts. But I want to show you how you can adopt these strategies for your home so that you can have more comfort, more freedom, and be able to handle adverse situations. We're going to talk about 3 levels of performance: the good, better, and best. And we're going to talk about the adaptability of today's technology to allow you to have these things. So the first thing you want to have on your property, first, any property that's going to be successful is going to have basically food, shelter, and hygiene. So food could be the food you brought with you. It could be the food growing on the property. It could be a variety of the two. Shelter could be some shelter you brought with you, such as a tent or a camper, or it could be the home that you build on the property. And finally, sanitation is going to be your toilets. It's going to be your wash stations, your kitchen, those kind of items. Now, again, if you have a big piece of land in a remote location, this could be as easy as building a cabin and then having solar and other off-grid in the cabin itself. Now, I'm not going to go into specific technologies. I'm going to go into specific concepts you have on the property because I believe it's easier to get to a good solution if you understand the basics. So think about a utility van or a pickup truck that's going to go out on a job site. It needs to have enough power to handle small tools and handle things beyond a flashlight. So what do they have in the truck? Well, the truck has an inverter, it has a battery, and it has an engine to recharge. So once you understand that concept, you can see that you can go from an automobile of any kind with an inverter to a generator to a solar station that combines a generator with larger battery capacity and then ultimately solar panels to charge a battery bank. So you can do your 15 amp or your 30 amp on site, or even a 50 amp on site using a combination of all 3. But if you're just camping out there, the solar is enough to charge the batteries so that you can run power tools on location. Now, the proxy from the power tool could be a blender if you like to use a blender. But what I like most about today's technology, if we're talking good, better, and best when it comes to electricity, you can start with a Jackery or a Goal Zero. You can start with an automobile with a plug-in, or you can go all the way up to a trailer that has battery power and solar on it. Now, if you're interested in the trailer side, I am actually looking to develop a trailer that we would use in some of our projects. But again, these trailers are readily available to purchase, so it's not really something you need to build. The key is to be very modular in what you're doing. When it comes to hygiene, a lot of folks think they have to have a flush toilet on their site. Well, think about it. If you've got a cabin that you're not there year-round, a flush toilet is going to be at risk of freezing. So you may want to instead look at not a composting toilet that dehydrates the manure, the human waste, but I would recommend a compost toilet. Now, again, a compost toilet could be a bucket in the back of the truck. It could be a small outhouse building, or it could be a complete shower station. So that's good, better, and best. Now, we're going to do a complete shower house and toilet system on a site here in a couple months. If you'd like to see video about that, if you'd like to see come out and even help, we're doing this at a nonprofit foundation, and there's another site that we're building out as well. But my point being here is that you can have good, which would be actually good would probably just be a little trowel and dig a little hole in the woods and do your business. But if you're going to be in a long-term camp, perhaps you're in a whole hunting season, or perhaps you're doing an off-grid cabin, you want something that's going to take care of the environment and not going to leach human waste into groundwater. Now, if you have a toilet system or people that have to use the bathroom, you need to be able to wash your hands with soap and water. And I think back to the Boy Scout days when we had the wash station, which essentially is a tripod that we set up. We lashed it all together. It had little shelves on the sides, and then it had a basin, and then it had water that was above eye level, pretty much, either in a black bag or in a black barrel that allows it to warm up some. So that's an effective way to get started, and it doesn't require much materials. Now, if you can wash your hands with soap and water, you need a place for the gray water to go, and gray water is the type of water that's been, maybe rinsed dishes. It's got a little bit of organics in it, but it doesn't have any urine or human waste. That type of water needs to go into a gravel sump or into a mulch bed. So again, good, better, and best. You could have water that you've heated up on a camp stove, and you pour it into a basin, and you wash your hands with soap and water, and then you take that basin and you dump it into an area that's away from creeks, that's away from your campsite itself, because gray water can attract creatures, and then you're going to have plenty of carbonous material to layer in that. So perhaps you have a compost pile, and you take your rinse and wash water and pour it into the compost pile. Now, if you have a compost toilet, you can't have the same pile that you're pouring wash water into. You essentially need to have a separate pile that's because you don't want to over wet your human manure pile. Again, best might be a standalone building that has a water reserve, perhaps catching the water off the roof of the building, and then some kind of pump to pump it up to either a propane hot water heater, or to pump it up to a reservoir that gets a lot of good sun exposure. Now, the system we're building at a particular property I have in mind right now is actually going to catch the rainwater, allow you to pump it up to a cistern. It gravity feeds through a filtration system, and then is available for a propane hot water heater, kind of like what you'd put in an RV trailer. Or you can pump the water up and then drain it into the reserve tank in an RV trailer, and then use your RV as the modular unit. Now, the thing about a system like that is you want to be able to drain it out during the winter, and then any water that is captured, you want to make sure that it has a low water. During the winter, you want to make sure the water is ran down some, so that if it does freeze, it doesn't expand and bust your tank. So there's certain design elements there. But again, can you see the good, better, and best? Now, again, I like to modularize these particular solutions. You could camp in a tent in the woods and have your composting toilet in a bucket, and have your little shower area in a hanging from a tree, and be very comfortable. But I want to be able to upgrade each of these elements as you go, because you may not want to have that kind of wilderness adventure, and then again, you may want to, but you're not going to just take a dump in the woods and wash in the stream and not be aware of, I don't want to say creature comforts, but there's an ecological impact in doing those things that can be easily avoided by having a plan. So you want to be able to take out the back of the truck, kind of like one of those big ammo boxes or a chuck box, and it be your shower box. You want to be able to pull that out and have your portable kitchen. If you have a pavilion at a site, you want to be able to lock up your kitchen and your pantry areas to keep animals out. You may want to have a refrigerator, so a closet that has your power and it has a refrigeration system in there. So you could have a small refrigerator running on 12 volts or 24 volts, and then a propane gas to run it as well. You want to be able to have these things modular so that you can upgrade them, but also it gives you the most flexibility so that when something goes down, it doesn't take out your whole system itself. So we've talked about solar power station. We've talked about health and hygiene. We've talked about camping. Are we really talking about a base camp? Well, yes and no. So I know a lot of folks that have bought land, and they put a cabin out on the land, and the cabin is immovable. So once the cabin's there, it doesn't move. But I also have known people who set up just primitive campsites where they can pack in their gear. But there's always going to be some kind of convenience station, some kind of bathroom station, or some kind of place where they're parking their vehicle that is a permanent fixture. I like the idea of a base camp, because it becomes a place where some of this larger gear, so you started out hauling everything to the site, but by the third or fourth year of enjoying it, you kind of have a wind down to lock that stuff up. Maybe you've gone from a travel trailer to a fifth wheel, and now you've got components you can take out of the travel trailer, put it into the fifth wheel, and upgrade over time. I want you to maintain portability of these components. I want you to maintain some organization of these components, because these are going to allow you that if there's a natural disaster, let's say you have to evacuate your city because there's a natural disaster, you're going to be able to take these kits with you quickly. You pull the pickup truck up, you open the trunk of the car, you throw in your 72-hour food meal, you throw in your health and hygiene kits, you throw in your cook gear, and you're gone. It makes things a lot easier. You want to be able to go and just drop off at your campsite. If you have, like I've described in the past, a family compound or a family retreat, you want to be able to just go out there and enjoy it, but then have everything packed away properly when that person leaves, so that there isn't a big mess to deal with every time you go out. Everybody knows consistently. Now, if you think more like the Boy Scouts, you want to be able to be prepared and have redundancy in these systems. So I've known people who will store extra small propane tanks out at a campsite, or they'll have a map of where the nearest propane tanks are if they're using propane to cook off of. So they might, you can get away with being there for the weekend with one propane tank, but you've got two just in case. Do you see what I'm saying here? We're preparing for the situation. Having a base camp improves your ecological impact, because you're not tromping all over the woods and setting up in a different place each time. But again, it really depends on what you're going to do with the land and property. Now, notice I didn't talk about transportation when you're on site. You don't necessarily need that. I'm talking about the core elements: food, shelter, and sanitation. And so, again, we got our food that could be growing there, or the food that we bring out there. We've got a means of storing it safely. We've got a means of preparing it safely. Shelter could be everything from a tent to an RV to a cabin. It could be your final homestead setup. And then, of course, your sanitation is your shower, your cleanliness, your bathrooms, and that can go from compost toilet, which is very cost effective, works well with low technology, all the way up to a shower house, all the way up to the actual homestead house. It's almost like every path to use that land heads towards that homestead, that small farm, or even an estate. Can you see how all this works together? I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I want to make sure that your questions are getting answered. If you follow what I've described here, the good, better, and best approach, you're going to be able to start using any piece of land, no matter what condition it's in, no matter where it's located, and you're going to start getting that enjoyment. Now, the more you're on the land to interact with the land, the better you'll understand how the land wants to express itself and the different types of production you can get off of that land without harming the land itself. Plus, nothing's better than a couple family outings where you're tuning up the land, you're working on projects there, and you're seeing that progress. You go from a good or okay piece of land to a better piece of land to the land you've always dreamed of, and it all be the same land. Can you see where we're coming from here? Can you see how you can have what you're dreaming about? You can have these experiences. You can have this family recreation. And then even if you only have the kit for going places, you can even go check out other pieces of land in other region and even start enjoying this long before you've committed on a particular piece of land. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. And remember, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Simply visit the website at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page and just fill out the form and ask your questions. Fax into whatever you want to do. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead.